So I'm just going to get started. So I'm just gonna, people are gonna hopefully come in, but lucky us that we start with Jesse's today. Okay, so basically for Jesse, some things that you want to keep in mind when you are sort of working through a piece is number one, does the composition work? So that means you're going to throw the whole piece into black and white. That way you can just evaluate the overall kind of flow of the piece, the values, very basics, whether or not you have enough going on in the background or if your figures are popping out enough. So if we throw your picture into black and white right now, you can see that your characters kind of get drowned into all the foliage, all the texture, all the colors that you have. So one suggestion that you would probably do is either make the characters darker or your background darker. And in this case, I can imagine maybe you would want to make the background darker since you seem to want to make the focal point of this piece your characters. So just real quickly, well, let's see how that would look. Some really shoddy lasso work. Let's choose this mid color. So let's see. Hello, you didn't miss much. I was just talking about the basic initial kind of assessment of a picture. What happened to my music? Oh, paused. But basically, first thing first, once you got kind of a draft down, you're gonna stop for a second and you're gonna throw it into black and white. And you're gonna check your composition and your values, whether or not they're working. So right now you can see the values of your characters are too similar to your background. So it makes it very hard for them to pop out. So one solution that you can have is either have the background be a little bit darker, or you can have the characters be darker in that case. So I would imagine that maybe you would want to do like a slightly darker background since you do seem to like want to highlight these characters. So you could have, I don't know, like this kind of gradient. It doesn't have to be completely dark compared to your characters, but you could have sort of like some foliage right here. They're sort of shading and framing your picture in a sense that it kind of draws your eyes' attention towards the characters. Another thing to note is that you do want to think about composition. So composition, really quick way. Hello Grace. So we're just doing this Patreon crit stream for today. Anyway, so composition, really simple way that you want to think about composition is using up about 2/3 of canvas. So if I bust out some guide marks right now, let's see, about halfway, might be about here. Alright, so 2/3 means we are using 2/3, and so 2/3 of this canvas would probably be about this much. And you can see that your characters don't quite take up 2/3, so there feels like a lot more empty space. Yes, I am sick. That's why I sound like a frog. And that's why you hear like this weird thing in my mouth. It's a cough drop, so I don't cough as much while I'm talking during stream. But we gotta love it. Working with kids, they don't wash their hands, so getting a cold is inevitable. But anyway, so you see that a lot of your picture doesn't take up 2/3. Thank you, Grace. Doesn't take up 2/3 of your picture, so it's very empty. It feels very kind of strange to the viewer's eyes. So you would definitely want to, when you do go back to your file, go ahead and make these people bigger. So, and I know you were asking whether you should have the characters closer up front or the background more in focus. That just depends on you. Do you want to like give more ideas for the environment these characters exist in? Like, do you want to do a little storytelling, in which case then you want to reveal a little bit more of like where they're standing, what scenario they are in. If you only care about the characters' interactions or their like immediate situation or their emotions, then of course put them into like full view. They're the main center. But for today, I thought it would be great for you to, know a little bit about if you were to focus on the environment, because we don't want to just focus on our strengths, we want to also focus on our weaknesses. So let's go bump that baby out. So you can make them say about this big. They're still not quite as big as the version where you had them in full view. Alright, that's just some really ugly blocking. But now that we solved this basic compositional issue, another issue is that there's not enough like structure to break up your background. So I'm imagining that this is some kind of forest. So do take your opportunity to throw in some branches, some tree trunks to help you break up the shapes a little bit. So maybe some kind of tree trunk there. Alrighty, this tree trunk helps you frame the picture a little bit better. Or you could do that same whole thing where I was talking about doing those tree leaves. Like this or something. Just to help you further break up the shape some more. You also never want to have just a straight river smack in the middle, because that feels way too normal and it doesn't help us kind of move the eye around the picture. So if you do want to put like a river or something in there, maybe instead you could consider, I don't know, doing some kind of twisty-turny kind of river like this, or even going so far as to like do a pond. That way you get a lot more S-shaped twisty-turvies that kind of bring our eyes around the whole image. So you see how quickly that extra river compared to say the straight river helps bring our eye around. And at this point, you shouldn't be worrying too much about color just yet. For the initial stages when you're doing sketches, stick to black and white. Use your line work. Just because you aren't that quite confident with your color choices or not quite confident with your value studies, then you definitely need to stay away from that color until you're really quite sure that everything is a-okay. So right here, that way you can focus mostly on whether or not you have enough of the stuff to break up the piece so your eyes don't get too tired looking at the same kind of value all throughout. Now for sure there are some artists who do low contrast, low value. Hello Greta! Yeah, so for sure there are some artists that do like low contrast, low value kind of pieces, but they break that up by having really good kind of silhouettes and really good kind of textures. So if you do want to do like sort of more low contrast, then you have to have a very good grasp of your silhouettes your color combinations and textures. So if you don't have those kind of things under your tool belt already, then you do want to, you know, go back to the basics and use contrast as a way to kind of cheat a little bit to make your picture looks really nice. And then pose wise, I would say instead of having those two, you know, standing straight at each other, perhaps it might even be cooler to have one person standing a little bit farther back. Let me get rid of their background there. Did I cover it up? So bring this river a little bit longer, or maybe if it's not a river, I don't know. Heck is that? Oh. Oops. Let's do a little bit of erasing. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Grace. Been doing well, just getting sick again. I got sick for like 4 times this summer. It's disgusting. But I'm gonna get over it soon. It's in the cough phase, so it should be done. I do blame the children. You have to understand, kids literally be playing with their spit, blowing their nose, not washing their hands, all that shit. I'm like, that's a mage man. I really do. Yeah, so I work part-time as like a art teacher with little kids. So little kids are quite the germ fest. So my immune system is slowly building its tolerance, but not as of it's still not quite up to the task yet. Okay, we're gonna cover up this whole baby. Sure. Yeah, right here. Did the kiddo sign up for my clothes? Not unless they're using their parents' credit cards. Alright, so I'm just gonna have this guy sit a little bit farther back so they're not on the same plane. I don't know what his outfit looks like. Oh, shit. Okay. This guy's gonna have no arm because I don't know what that whole business is. Maybe it's some kind of walking stick? Jesse, is it a walking stick he's holding or a sword or something? We'll just put that there for now. also never take it seriously when I see a person do this. It's so anime-esque. You didn't plan anything. Yeah, so there are certain days where you kind of do spontaneous drawings, and that's fair. But after you finish doing your spontaneity, it's time to sit back and kind of consider, do a little bit of thinking, because we want it to sort of make sense a little bit to the viewer. So now we gotta consider, okay, so who is this guy? What time period or what kind of setting he's in? Since the girl looks like she's an elf, so it has to be some kind of fantasy setting, right? So maybe these trees don't actually look very realistic. They maybe, I don't know, like mushroom trees or something. Little polka dots. Fantasy school. We'll give these mushroom trees or something. I don't know. That's just one way to make the piece feel a little bit more unique or stands out, is to try to design a little bit of the foliage. You could create like cool little mushrooms over here. All right, this is where brushes come in handy. Oh, wrong brush. Don't tell me it's your custom brush. I dare you to make a whole ass piece using that custom brush, Jesse. That's just too funny. I don't know, I'm just throwing some stuff down there so it feels a little bit more full. I can kind of see maybe these orange and yellow parts becoming some kind of foliage. All right, let's see. How do we do this? So let's separate, build some forms out of these babies here. You know what? I'm gonna throw everything into black and white, so I am not gonna concern myself too much with the issues of color. So let's see how to do this. Alright, so no more color, so we're not gonna worry ourselves silly trying to figure out the color situation when we don't even have a very solid foundation for the environment. So we have this really dark kind of foreground, so perhaps we're gonna have a sort of medium kind of overlay and then rasterize. And that way you get some opportunities to bring back some light in. I don't know. Let's do overlay style, maybe that's easier. And you can create a very dramatic, I don't know, first love or love at first sight. I don't know what the story is behind these people. But it definitely would feel a little bit more anime-esque with the whole sunset and stuff. You'll make the story as you go. Good. It does help to have some semblance of like an emotion, even if you don't have like the full story going. So like maybe you're going for sad, going for romantic, going for cheesy rom-com. Yeah, so I had that whole story because I was vibing with the whole after school summertime mood. So that one I definitely took a lot of inspo from like anime, such as like Your Name color palette and stuff. And then I think what we need to do is darken a little bit of the background, so maybe this half right here could get a little bit tad bit darker so the characters pop out a little bit. What the heck? Oh. I'm glad you enjoyed that picture. I had a lot of fun making it. And then I'm gonna throw some weird textures. So what I'm doing right now is basically trying to go for a kind of sunsetty afternoon vibe, but of course if you wanted to, you could potentially make this into sort of a nighttime glowing scene just to emphasize the whole fantasy part, but that's just like a side thought I had while I was doing this whole edit. I'm just gonna merge these because I can't be bothered to try to figure out what layers what. And so I'm going to consider this value as a sky value. I don't know what this tree is. Some kind of weird ass tree. to help you cut this whole composition and you don't have as much empty space. Alright, so throw some of that. Yeah, you could totally add some creatures, then it'd be so cool. Then you wouldn't have such, you know, empty tree branch. You could even throw some mushrooms on there just so you don't, you know, your tree looks more interesting than just what it is. Because I'm just throwing shit onto this paper hoping something sticks. So if some ideas like you like them, then go ahead and go for them. If you don't like them, just, you know, save it for next time. Yeah. Or instead of this tree, you could just, I don't know, do a big old honking tree. The classic world tree kind of vibe, whole elves kind of thing. In which case it would need to be huge because, you know, world trees. But then you can, you know, throw some roots everywhere. Okay. Hold on tight, y'all. Oh, genius idea, genius o'clock. Why don't you just have these characters sitting on top of a tree? That would solve our problem. Okay, we're gonna axe this whole protocol. We're having them sit on a tree. I don't give a shit what you're gonna say. Then we're gonna have them. We need some kind of storyteller happen, and I'm gonna make it so this guy and that girl is having a blast. Okay, merge down. This guy could be standing right about here, I guess. And then she's sitting here. Alright, so here's tree branch. Disgusting tree right here. Don't worry about it. It's just a placeholder for now. You can make better shapes than this if you wish. Actually, let's put the tree branch elsewhere. That way we can do some skies, so. Yes, you can make clouds. What are we doing cloud studies for this month? What for if we're not going to use them, okay? Alright, so that means we're gonna leave a little opening for this cloud baby. can have a majestic cloud sit in the background there. As bright as you want it, I don't know. These trees are gonna have to go shut the F up and just deal with how ugly they are. Throw some, I don't know, throw some textures in there, I don't know. So you can see that they're trees and not just big blobs. Forget it. Okay, and then I would potentially have her be closer to us. Okay. Right here, so you have the sense of playing with the perspective a little bit. And then he's standing in the back as if he just climbed onto the tree. And he's spotting her. He's like, who the heck is on my tree? I was hoping to eat in peace or something. I don't know. And then let's get rid of his fucking hand. And then throw some a superhero cape. Shit, man. It's because the hand doesn't make sense. The only time I ever see that hand is when it's like so done sarcastically or ironically. So you can just have a really boring stance right here if you want, or if you feel up to the challenge, you could potentially have him. Practice a little bit of your figure study stuff. So maybe he could be hopping onto here. In which case, maybe his cape flows up this way, I don't know. So you can see more of his silhouette come out. Make sure don't have the cape look too perfect. Alright, so option dos. Since I need this guy to pop out of the picture, I'm potentially going to lighten up the tree in the background a little bit. Throw some weird textures on there, I don't know. Yeah, if you just landed on the tree, that way you get a little bit more dynamicism, and you practice the figure poses that we talked about in the previous month's tutorial. So option one is just to have him stand like he's dropping down, so maybe his arm is instead not here, and he just landed from above. in which case his arm's gotta be behind his body. I don't know what the whole outfit situation will be, but we'll just leave it like this for now. Get rid of that. Okay, so option 1 is he just landed from the tree above. Option 2, he's hopped on up or something like that, just so the scene feels a little bit more dynamic. And then make sure you have this girl right here bigger, so that way you get a nice contrast of the sense of depth and you don't just have like 2 characters sitting side by side. It's fine if you do want them sit side by side, but then in which case you really do have to focus on the subtleties of their movement. So the guy's not going to be sitting perfectly still. He might be slouching. The girl might be kind of shy, so her body's turned a little bit away from him or something like that. That way it doesn't feel boring for us as viewers. And then let's finish up the lighting situation. I'm doing this really rough sketching to kind of mimic the tree texture. That's lazy 101. And then just throw in some speckles of light or something. Actually, let's not do it like this. Let's do it this way. That way I can cheat all throughout. Work smart, not hard. So now if you are to apply color, then you can go back to that original color palette that you really liked. With all the yellows and greens. Some colors in there. We can have this like ice cream color instead of like blue, so you stay with that whole original color palette. Let me go look at your original picture again real quick. Alright. Yeah, very much red, orange, yellow, greens, and the only blues is the character. In which case, you're not gonna go too much into the blues for your character. You're gonna maybe stick to like a turquoise. You can even do, I don't know, a greenish, bluish color for the shadows. So you stick with the whole color scheme. I'll let you figure that out. But and then to contrast, the girl opposite of turquoise is like a salmon-y color. So you're on the right track on using good complementary colors to create contrast in storytelling. Though maybe instead of like that white color that you used, I would use that turquoise color again to kind of draw the whole piece back together. And so they kind of, you know, mirror their color palettes. So they feel like there's some more connection between them besides that. They're in the same picture. Let's see if we can throw some more orange into the tree leaves. Okay, so basically it's up to you for the color palette in terms of figuring out the colors. I trust you too. I trust you. So basically, I do want you to go back to black and white and figure out the pose and everything, make sure the anatomy is correct. And you have a good sense of like what direction the lighting is before you decide to choose a color palette. Because you see, even I kind of, you know, I try to play around with the color palette, but it's not perfect. I'm not like super 100% satisfied with it. I would probably tweak maybe the tree colors a little bit, tweak some of the shadow colors, and maybe make things a little bit less grayish tone. But that's for you, Jessie. I will keep this all together. If you do still want to do that whole river scene, I won't stop you. You can add the river at the bottom, like right here or something. I don't know. So you have that sense of the sky again. Like that or something. I don't know. That's one way to add light back down here. Alright, let's go to Misu. Ooh, yes, black and white first. Because I know you have a tendency to like to just throw some colors down, which is a very fun way to play, like start painting, but then, you know, you kind of gotta switch it to black and white to kind of evaluate whether the values are correct before you move on to final rendering and everything. Because once you move on to final rendering, you're kind of fucked in the your whole life if it's not that composition isn't working, or like you decide like, oh shit, the values aren't, the characters aren't popping enough, then it's too late, you did too much work, then you gotta just abandon it. Okay, so Misu's pun on a pun. And don't worry, Jessie, you're not the only one who cries, because I struggle sometimes with like more complicated pieces. I like have to go back and forth on myself. I debate myself like, hey, is this enough? Is this good enough? Which you can see from my work in progress shots. Anyway, so for traditional piece, we're gonna talk about composition lighting and just some techniques that I think could help with the pencil shading. So it might help me to know whether or not you're using like the traditional pencil, like the graphite, or a lead pencil, like the mechanical ones, because there are slight differences when it comes to kind of shading. If you are using the traditional type, like let's see here, if you're using these types of pencils, let me bust out my set real quick. So if you got yourself a set of these types of pencils, where I'm missing some, so don't judge. They look like these, and they go from classic old 6B to 4H, which is the lightest. But basically those pencils, you're going to want to make sure that they're always sharpened, but not too sharp, because it tends to be very hard for you to shade using them. So about, say, 70 to 80% sharp like this is usually a good sharpness. So you can kind of hold your pencil like this on the side and get that really soft texture. For, obviously, if you're trying to go for darker values, I would say save 6B for the very, very, very last, because it is the darkest and it's also the softest graphite lead. So that means it tends to smudge on your hand everywhere, and it's very hard for you to control it. Whereas if you're using like the 2B to 4B range, it's a little bit harder, so like the lead density. So it's going to be easier for you to get that sharpness. So I usually start out by using like the 2H, I believe, like this medium light, like lighter than your regular 2B pencil. Or if you're just using a regular 2B pencil, hold your pencil farther back. That way you're putting less pressure on the lead part, and you can really lightly, loosely get that lead pencil just on the paper. And lay down like this general shade right here. And I see that you're smudging it a little bit, so that's good. Then you move on to your darker values, slowly build it up. Don't worry too much about the darkest value just yet, because if you do that, you're gonna see a very distinct line right here that you have. So do try to hold off on going super, super dark just yet, just because you want to build up your values slowly, especially with traditional media. So let me see if I have a pencil that... Okay, so you want to go just slightly darker. And make sure you're going gradually when it comes to shading, because it's easier to go darker than it is to go lighter, because the eraser can only do oh so much. And already you see that extra added value right here helps bring out that pearl that you have right here. Okay, now are we gonna slightly go darker? And again, we're gonna be gradual about it. And at this point, if I'm shading with the traditional pencil, I have it on the side and I'm still holding it farther back. That way I'm using less pressure, so I can slowly build up the value rather than trying to go at it all at once. Now, I can't really replicate this quite perfectly with the digital media, but it will have to do. Okay, and then you're gonna come back in with your eraser and then very lightly erase away to get that rim light that we have here. And the rim light's actually not that bright, it's just like a slight bit. And then make sure you try to get the shadow underneath as dark as possible. So this is your darkest, I believe. So I'm gonna take that color. Apply that in there as much as you can. Okay, so the contrast, you do want to do a little bit darker rim light, and then you need higher contrast in your shadow, that way it looks nicer. And then when it comes to shading bandanas, you're gonna see how the classic masters at work. Vermeer does not use a lot of folds in order to indicate that the bandana has folds. Instead, he uses a good amount of the shape of the light versus the shape of the dark in order to imply that there's a bandana. So that means this part of your bandana does not need that much attention. You're working too hard if you're trying to apply all these tiny little folds that no one's gonna see from far away. And then over here in the dark side, we gotta focus on big shapes. So wherever you got, there's a fold, extra little loop. Let's darken this up a little bit. And already you can see it's kind of coming into shape, right? And you didn't even work that hard. And you know what my favorite motto is? Work smart, not hard. And then you can just add some areas a little bit darker if there is like a very distinct crease, but I don't advise you do too much because that can look very nuanced. Now the only shadows I'll let you have in this area is like the very subtle ones underneath right here where it would get that shadow, a little bit up here, but otherwise no shadow allowed. Okay? And then you want to make sure you catch that light in there. Alright, so let's throw that in there. See the difference? This simplification of the bandana helps the circle read a lot easier. I might even make them similar values and just a little bit of shadow over on this side so you can see that it's resting on top of the sphere. And then when it comes to the pearl is a very reflective object, so even more so than the sphere, you need to make sure this part is the shiniest part, the part that catches the light, and then underneath here we definitely need that bounce light hardcore. So get that shadow there, nice and dark. Doesn't have to be a regular shape, but then we need to throw in that bounce light. So let me zoom in a little bit. That's the only way the pearl will look like a pearl and make it pop out of the page. See that? Maybe if I do this with the multiply layer, whatever. You're just gonna have to pretend all the textures are still there. So you decide whether you want the sphere or the bandana to be darker. That's something you do have to decide. Because if you have them the same value, it does tend to look a little bit drowned out. So before, after, just simplify a lot of your pencil work. Don't work too hard. And pay attention to just the relativity of darkness. So you're not getting dark enough, especially in the shadow area. And it would help to be a little bit darker in your bounce light for the sphere, whereas your pearl should get less of that darkness in the bounce light. And just final touches, I would say still want that shadow to look more egg-shaped than really round and circular. So a little bit pointier here, tapers off like a triangle rather than like a round sphere, especially since the light is kind of coming from the side instead of like from up top. And then when it comes to cracks like this, go light-handed on it. Don't go too dark. It's better to just go really like light, and then have some areas a little bit darker. That way it looks natural, because there are some areas where like a crack is like deeper than some areas. So see how that brings out that crack a little bit. So just slight differences, but overall pretty nice rendering of the sphere. It's crazy how circular you got it. I imagine you either perfected your compass skill or you got really good at drawing scribbles after doing so many months of traditional sketch without your iPad. Okay, let's move on to Greta, because let's talk about muscular men. So when it comes to muscular men, sexy man o'clock indeed. We have to follow the rule of the Dorito, in which case we treat the upper body of the man like a upside down Dorito triangle. Okay, so that means their shoulders are going to be way more broad than their hips, and then their hips are going to taper off into sort of like a slightly narrow. You don't want to go too narrow because then they look really weird. So if you want your muscular men to look juicy and thick, this part's gotta be the fattest, the widest shoulders you've ever seen. So wide. Where's my eraser? And this muscle right here gets hecka emphasized, so I think that's the trapeze, or I don't actually know the muscle groups, but basically this back muscle right here that connects to the ribs right here. that gets hella emphasized when you work out a lot and you're overall very, very fit. So that's why they end up oftentimes popping out this way, whereas the torso stays this way. Okay, and then you gotta make sure the tricep muscles basically end up getting like the main show. Like if you look at yourself when you lean back, and you'll notice that this muscle right here, your tricep and your deltoid, basically kind of pops out a lot, and even more so if you're like super hella fit with a lot of muscles on the arm. So this part of the arm gets hella fat. No running away from it. Now, before we go on with like the anatomy, let's just talk about the composition, because you said you were hella inspired by, where is it? That Sleepy Time Summer vibe. And I think I've seen that picture and it's so beautiful. One thing that yours is missing is that extreme angle. So your fan's not in the right spot, and what's his name again? Toji is not in the right perspective, so we gotta do this real quick. Okay, so let us do a little bit of manipulation. This is gonna be the shittiest edit ever, but you just have to take it. Or better yet. You're obviously not gonna do this for your own piece, but to save us time, if you can potentially send me the layers, the file with the layers, that would be nice, but you don't have to. The goal of the critique is just to give you the idea of how to edit it rather than me to fix it for you. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. Alright, just pretend this is yours. And we'll do a little bit liquefy to get in the right perspective, because yours is a little bit more turned towards us. Alright. You sending me the link to it or something? Take your time. In the meantime, let's pull up some pictures of some muscular men so we have a good idea of what we're working with. see this. Visit. Alright. So 2 pictures of Zabak. Let's download this baby. Oh, it's not the right type of document. What document is this? Let's see. Huh. What documents? What document is type is this? Oh, yeah, I don't think it converted properly. It's okay, we'll just work with what we've got. Oh yeah, Goth Girl was the nickname I put when I was younger. I couldn't bother to change it when I switched over computers, so whatever. So we'll do what we can with this file for now. Okay, so got that. I'll try that. Perfection. Okay, so let us move stuff around. Let's see. So these are working together. Why do you just have that one section? Greta. That's so funny. That's not the whole motion. Okay, so I'm going to move this, cut this out, merge these layers. So this is not perfect for sure, but it's still a little bit easier when I'm editing it. Okay, so you need the more of the fan to go sort of like how theirs is tilted downwards in order to communicate that whole, you're looking at it from below. Layer management, nah, I got you, girl. Okay, let's do this. That's why I merged the layers, so we never have to think about it again. Okay, let's see. So here, let's put that down there. So I want more of that downward tilt, first of all. So you're gonna go back to Clip Studio and get the different angle of the fan because it needs to be tilted as though. So at this point I'm not going to bother shading it because you're just going to use Clip Studio to do this, so Alright, pretend this was properly drawn. But that's the first thing you're gonna do. Then we're gonna make maybe this part a little bit bigger so it looks like it's closer to us. Second thing that we're going to do is we're going to make Toji smaller, because he is supposed to be farther away from us, this part, and then his Legos are gonna get slightly bigger. So how do I do this? I'm gonna merge these babies. So I would, in a sense, push this leg this way outward more. Hold a sec. The fan's gotta go a little bit higher. You definitely chose a very difficult angle, Greta. But I believe you, you got this. So we gotta make his legs bigger because they're closer to us. No, not sorry to me, it's sorry to you because you gotta figure this out. Indeed, we will be perspective masters. Okay, so shrink that baby. And then I would most definitely push his knee a little bit closer this way, just because when you think about like how you're sitting on the floor, your legs are not that close together. And then the issue with this part right here, before I forget it, we need more of the rooftop showing here. Oops. All right, I may just I'm just gonna draw him in because the perspective you have him at is as if you're imagining him. So let me model it for you how it would be if, because a lot of things would actually be hidden if you are looking at the same perspective. So if you do want to see all of his juicy muscles, then we do have to change the perspective and not make it so dramatic and from below. Classic Portrait Studio coming in clutch because I cannot explain it better than if I were to just model it for you. Alright, so first of all, we gotta put these babies down. I'm getting my investment in this program tenfold. Alright, so just gonna turn just a little bit, not too much. And then up the daisies. This is no way perfect, but Let's push this down a little bit. Alright, so slouch happening. Maybe this needs to be turned down more so the knee doesn't look like whack shit. Oops, this way. So you see how the leg needs to be turned out more? It's not easy. If you thought drawing sexy daddies was gonna be a breeze, you are incorrect. Unless you want to draw some wacky looking sexy daddies. Alright, so I got the basics down. Up a little bit more. Maybe this needs to be pushed up a little bit so his foot can sit down properly. Alright, so this is not 100% like how a normal person would sit, but it's close. It's close. Right? Bam, and we got the pose. So, if we are looking at it from this angle, he would have to be sitting like this, basically. And then the floor, let me bring up the floor actually. So he's sitting smack on the floor, so you can see. And let me shrink it a little bit. Oop. So the perspective would be something like this, perhaps. Let me throw in a impromptu fan so we can see what looks like a fan. Right? Yeah, it's super duper low. Like, this is how low this artist made it. So if we're able to see the underside of the roof on the fan, that's why it's so low. So if you did want to keep this pose, I would suggest maybe we don't do it as low. Let's put the cylinder here for a bit. Oops. Delete it, I fucked up. Okay, so before I fuck up, I'm going to lock the layer of the mannequin, hide all his joints so I don't end up accidentally touching that. So it's great that you didn't do too much rendering just yet, because we can sort out these issues before we go into it further. Alright, so more cylinders. So a fan probably looks something like that. Rotate that baby. actually be that extra piece, so let me rotate it some more. So that's how low the angle would sit. It's okay, Greta. We just don't have to do it as low. We just maybe do it like this. Or another option is if you do want to keep that angle, you could do it like this with him peeping behind. Where is he? Hide. Oh, no, show. Show. Okay, so other option is you can have him turned like this if you still wanted to show off his pose, but not at a quite so low of an angle, or if you still wanted to keep that whole fan situation, we'll just do it at slightly less of an angle. So let me save this file. Save. Let me just delete these. We don't need these. We don't need these anymore. Okay, save as new. Destroy. Okay, so instead this time, maybe our fan, we're not gonna do so much. And so that means we're gonna have to bring up our floor. Oops. Shoji screen. Okay, get rid of that. Slightly higher still. And then I would totally make him slightly smaller, just so you have some more breathing space. And then this would be your new horizon line. So, oops. I gotta cool off this color a little bit, so let's do that. Am I in the wrong place? I am in the wrong place. Oops. Okay, so you get some of that light reflection. Out there is going to be that brighter wood floor. And I'm gonna shrink that down a little bit and push some of the features. So if you remember, this part is gonna be a little bit lower down, that curve. We're gonna broaden his shoulders a little bit. To try to create that Dorito shape. And then I'll just do some final touch-ups using painting. And then if you if you ever seen yourself lean backwards, if you don't know how that looks, take a picture of yourself leaning backwards and you're gonna see your arm actually pushes back to balance yourself a lot more. So don't have the arm stick in too closely or else it's super off balance. Again, the rule of triangles. And especially since we're trying to push him back into the background, we're gonna recede his hand a little bit. And then his knee's gonna sit right here. Now the great thing about balloon pants, Greta, I'm gonna tell it to you straight right now. That means you have to do less work on the legs, no leg muscles required. So this whole shebang right here, covered up, you do not see a lick of it at all. So if you thought you had to understand how to shade in the legs, you were wrong. You was wrong. So this whole mess right here, all pants. Depending even how baggy the balloon pants are, they might group around the legs right here, creating some extra shadows. So we gotta tint this a little bit. Should be a little bit turquoisey. Where can I find that color? Let's do it like this. Okay, so everything in this picture is very turquoisey, so blues, purples, nothing is like pure gray. So we're gonna have everything in here, the shadows be the cool blues, and then light is gonna be a warm blues. Just for our edification purposes, we're gonna draw an underlying skeleton so you know just how he needs to be shaped. So our skeleton right here, slight tilt right there, so you see a little bit of his underjaw right there. Slight tilt on the rib cage. You're gonna see the hips right about here. The knee is foreshortened towards us. The leg is foreshortened to be right here, so you don't see too much of it. This part of the leg gets a little bit bigger because it's closer to us. I would maybe even push his leg even further out this way. Okay, so knees. The arm bends a little bit here. Shoulders. So that's basically what we're working with. So I'm gonna push this knee over here a little bit so his leg can actually go a little bit closer towards us. See how that silhouette looks nicer than compared to before? I don't think I can get the before, but whatever, you know what I mean. There we go, the before. So this silhouette feels too smooth, nothing's disrupting it, and this one has a little bit pop out. Yeah. So for in regards to the foreshortening of like the feet, if you've seen like those images where you have like a character sitting right here, laid back in the back, slouched, their feet are like humongo here, that's if they're really foreshortened. But in this case, it's not quite that, so don't foreshorten it too much. Okay, so we gotta hide a little bit of his chest. And then we're going to pop out that muscle right there. And voila, already it's, see right there? That's not the muscle that you're missing. And then we gotta trim his waist a little, give him a little diet. So his shoulder is gonna hide his neck a little bit. We still gotta get the whole shoulders raised, because if I'm leaning back right here, your shoulder gets raised up a little bit. So we gotta create that U shape right here. And then we gotta create that taper. And then even with muscular necks, there's still, you know, definition with it. So right here. Let's first get that angle in there. And you might want to consider giving him a little bit more eyebrow, because men with thin eyebrows tend to look very weak-willed. The only way I can describe it. So don't be afraid to give him just a slightly bit thicker eyebrow, just in the front part at least. Let's see. Where's my other one? Yeah, see that Dorito shape? And look at all those muscles that get enhanced when you work out a lot. So especially if he's leaning back, he's definitely gonna pop out some of those muscles a little bit. And just based stylistically on JJK, their upper chest tends to be a little bit shorter, like this guy, rather than really long like some bodybuilders get. So we're just gonna shrink the location of the pecs a little bit. So we're gonna sit right here. This is a very rough shading, but so far this is just basically how you would go about simplifying a lot of the muscle groups instead of trying to, you know, draw individual boobas. So. And also the neck right here, that major neck muscle, you're missing it. Like, do you see that neck muscle right here? Without it, your piece, the neck feels like way too fat. I hate to say it like that, but it just feels fat and doesn't feel like very structured at all. So you do need to like sort of define it a little bit. Throw in his hair again. Let me see if I can redraw his face, because the way I edit it looks really weird. So we gotta move it here up a little bit. would think by now I like check before I put stuff down, but I'm too much like in a rush to double check where I'm putting my layers down, so oh well. Alright, where is Toji? Gotta go fast, exactly. I'm going Sonic fast. And then he would definitely need hella eye sockets because he's a bad guy, so he's gonna be in shadow. His hair is gonna need to go this way then. Yes, he is bad guy, so let's give him his bad guy small pupils. And then I'm gonna choose like a slightly off color. I don't know, something like that, I guess. Make his nose longer, because bad guys have really skinny, long noses. Make it scary. Fear of the nose. Let's fix up his bangs. Oh, it's not so messy. Because I was just rushing with the hair right here. But you do want to make sure it's like slightly over his eyes, because it looks from the reference photo he has a lot of long bangs to give that oily, greasy, scary creeper vibe. And then if we really want to make these muscles pop, we can't forget this spicy little muscle right here. Now, depending on your lighting situation, this whole abs lighting might be different. So you do want to decide on which direction the lighting is coming from. I'm just assuming the lighting's like this way, really generic. That's why this part of the abs is gonna get the shadow. This middle section where it's divided is gonna get the shadows, not on both sides, okay? And let's see. Let's do a little bit of shading that I can somewhat discern. You could get some light, and that would only be on this side, because remember what I said, I'm deciding that I want the light on that side. So the light is gonna be a cooler blue. You can get a little bit right here, not too much. Or I mean warmer blue, sorry. I'm going crazy. Just a tad bit, and you can even have a little bit on his spicy pecs. And then we'll shade the pants using light rather than trying to do shading. So let's see. Yeah, see, not too much light. Yeah, arms are hard. Okay, so we're going to shade this whole section like this, because we gotta bring in some light, and we've decided our cyan color is our light color. Ah, is Photoshop lagging? No, not when we're at the juicy part. Okay, back. So get you that spicy rim lighting, so I'm going to make this whole section, all of this. Let's see. How do we do this? Because we need to darken up our character a little bit before we do anything. Whoops, my bad. I binded spacebar to mute because I was afraid I was gonna cough and I would need to quick mute. But anyway, you can throw in your clouds right here for some quick spicy cloud studies that we did this month. So this month's challenge and last month's tutorial was for sure super duper helpful. Full circle, baby. You can even, I don't know, throw some wisps. Throw some rooftops here. Roof. We're gonna make it slightly turquoisey. I don't know how Japanese houses look like, but I imagine it's like the darker rooftop and then lighter house. I know they opt for like the purpley color, but I feel like the purpley, yeah, I guess you could do that. Just make a combination, don't just do purple. Do a little bit of blue in it so it's not so lonely. Break it up with some trees. And then for sure, we're gonna fix this not be so. That much should be good enough. Whoops, let's go. And then you can break up this shape right here with So the tip to shading balloon pants is to go super duper vague and super duper big chunky shapes. Don't do very small wrinkles because balloon pants are very like flowy, so if you do small wrinkles, only times you're going to do it is like where the cloth is actually going to be able to crease, like between the pelvis and the legs, the knee, armpit area, etc. Otherwise, it's going to be big old floppy mess like this. Let's finish with the shading of the arm. So right here, big old muscle right here. This right here would be your tricep. And then this is like your bicep, and then this is like all the small little arm muscles. So this right here, there's that distinctive, go away Microsoft Defender. There's that distinctive arm muscle that occurs right here that kind of controls like your twisting of your arm motion. And that's usually very, very defined, especially if you're like hella ripped. And that usually is lined up kind of on the top side of the palm area, close to the thumb, but not quite. So you're not going to see too much of it on this side of the arm. And if you really feel the obligation, or you have the time and you want to, feel free to draw some arm veins to emphasize the muscularity and how hard he's working on his body. So how to draw veins? Real simple, you draw the shadows of the veins and not the veins themselves. So and you let the implication of the branching do the work for you instead of actually drawing the vein. You can add just a little bit of a highlight, but not too much. Don't go too crazy. Our skin isn't that shiny, so you definitely wouldn't see too much of that. Okay, so this is how you draw veins. If you really feel obligated, even though from far away you're really not going to see it. So that's last minute details only. We're gonna do some general shading real quick. And then some suggestions I might have just for like the general background stuff. You could consider adding like those see-through crystal lanterns like that you see in anime during the summer, just to help you brighten up the scene a little bit. Add a little source of color. Yeah, the wind chimes. So those are great ways just to add a little bit of color to your picture. I'm doing really sloppily, but you'll get the idea. For the texture inside, always, you know, don't do it by hand. Take a texture brush to help you do the work for you. You can even add some more stuff in the corner here, like a table in the corner. Let's see, where can I put it? You could put a little table here with some magazines or something, I don't know, or a little stool. In which case, perfect opportunity to add like a tiny little table right here, or in front right here, and then put a beer in it. This fugly table, but whatever. You get the idea. You could even put a, I don't know, what else? This fan would probably be smaller because we're no longer exaggerating that extreme angle anymore. Maybe put something over here. Like some boxes piled up or something, or you can, like, he's moving in. Yes. So these are just ideas for you. You could also leave a little bit more space here so you can see the houses if you really do want that. You could put a little wall outside here if you don't want to just draw houses just quite yet. Since it's not such a low angle, so where'd that be at? I don't know, you can you decide for the background, it's up to you. So some things that you do want to fix up, first things first, is just to in general fix the angle of the fan, and maybe shrink it a little bit so it's not so big, because this one is only so big because it's so foreshortened towards us. That's why. You could maybe make an argument for, say, this big but no bigger, and it has to be really close to the edge of the canvas so it looks like it's pushed towards us. I would even move him slightly smaller, just ever so slightly, so he feels like he sits further back into the scene. Okay, so let's see the before. very good concept idea, but we have a little bit of issues regarding consistency of perspective, so we adjust that. And then we also, you know, darkened up some things because you had to do, well, make sure this guy, Toji, looks like he's sitting inside the interior. So he has to be darker. That way the rim light can, very spicily. And then you'll probably want to think of some more things to decorate with. So this artist right here put like a cup of juice. They put some microwave or a TV on top of like a bookshelf to help fill that space. You could even put an animal walking across the background or the foreground, one or the other, just to help you fill this space up, because right here this is too empty. This might here, maybe just put some buildings. You want to put a worm? Go for it. You could put like a little shadow of a worm right here if you want. Just, you know, lots of different ways. Oh, you also want to cover up the space a little bit. It's too empty. So you can just take a page out of their book. Make it seem like there's a little bit more tree shade. Oops. I'm in the wrong layer. If you want, you don't have to add the tree, it's up to you. But anyway, that's it for this crit session. I'm gonna go rest my voice and drink some more water. Hopefully I'll be better, and if I feel better by like Monday or Tuesday, maybe I'll do some more streams. Real quick, let me show you the finished version of the, well, I say it's finished, but I may backtrack on that. But this one, because when I crop it for Instagram, I noticed this part's a little too empty, so I may move some stuff around just for it to look muy perfection. And yes, Greta, I agree with your whole, the pink looks too chaotic, so that's why I opted for the darker mask. Just so the peonies can pop much better, because I feel like the pink just looks too similar to the peonies, so the peonies just kind of sink into it. So now it kind of pops better. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this up, and then once I get the video edited together, you're gonna see that I do a lot of backtracking, and it takes way longer just because of the backtracking and not because I'm actually painting. Okay, I will see you guys next time. Bye bye. Hope you guys have a good night.